The strongest brands do not only sell products. The strongest leaders do not only give orders. They give people a story to believe in. Today, you will discover how storytelling enters the mind, builds trust, shapes decisions, and makes a simple idea feel personal, memorable, and worth following. Human beings have always lived inside stories. Before charts, ads, and mission statements, people learned through characters, hope, mistakes, and meaning. Stories helped us remember who could be trusted, what values mattered, and what future was worth moving toward. That is why storytelling still has so much power in brands, leadership, and human behavior. Imagine Emma walking into a small coffee shop on a rainy morning. She does not choose it because the chairs are perfect or because the menu is the cheapest. She chooses it because a note on the wall says the place was started by two sisters who wanted to recreate the warmth of their grandmother's kitchen. Suddenly, the room feels less like a business and more like a memory she has been invited into. This is the psychological root of storytelling. The brain does not treat stories like random information. It organizes them into cause, emotion, intention, and change. We ask, who wanted something, what stood in the way, and what happened next? This gives the mind a path to follow. You may forget product features, but remember a commercial where a father records his daughter growing up, or a founder who starts in a garage, fails, and tries again. The story gives facts a heartbeat. But memory is only the first layer. The next one is more powerful. A good story can make trust feel natural before logic even speaks. Picture Daniel, a careful buyer who compares every price. He opens two websites selling similar backpacks. One shows materials, dimensions, and discounts. The other tells the story of a traveler who lost everything on a trip and designed a stronger backpack so others could feel safer on the road. Daniel still checks the price, but something has shifted. One product is an object. The other feels like a solution born from experience. This is how storytelling builds trust. People trust more easily when they understand intention. A brand that says, "We are high quality," asks the customer to believe a claim. But a brand that shows why it exists gives the customer a reason to believe. It says, "We saw a problem. We care enough to solve it." Here is the journey. When we buy something, join a team, or follow a leader, we are making a small emotional bet. We want to know, are these people sincere? Do they understand my problem? Will they stay consistent? Storytelling gives doubt a human shape. You see this when a bakery feels warmer because you know the first recipe came from someone's family, or when a coach feels trustworthy because they admit they once struggled too. A real story has texture, a problem, a lesson, a reason for existing. And once trust begins, the mind asks, do I see myself in this story? Imagine Sophia scrolling after a long day. She sees an ad for running shoes. The first version says lightweight design, durable sole, new technology. Useful, but easy to ignore. Then she sees another video. A beginner runner ties her shoes before sunrise. Embarrassed at first, then slowly becomes stronger, calmer, and more confident. Sophia has not touched the shoes, but the story speaks to the version of herself she wants to become. This is one of the strongest parts of storytelling. It turns the customer into the hero. Many brands make the mistake of telling stories only about themselves. But the best stories make the audience feel seen. The product becomes a tool, the brand becomes a guide, and the customer becomes the person moving from frustration to possibility. This works because identity drives behavior. People often buy what helps them express who they are or who they want to become. A notebook can symbolize creativity. A car can symbolize freedom. A healthy meal plan can symbolize self-respect. That is why someone may say, "This brand just gets me." The story matches something inside them. Ambition, simplicity, adventure, care, or the quiet joy of improving. But when a story becomes part of identity, something surprising happens. Price stops being just a number. It becomes connected to meaning. Think about Marcus choosing a watch for his first big promotion. He can find cheaper watches that tell the time just as well. But one brand tells a story about craftsmanship, patience, and objects made to mark important life moments. He imagines wearing it when he signs a contract, on future trips, maybe one day passing it to someone he loves. Suddenly, he is not only buying a watch, he is buying a chapter of his own life. This explains why storytelling can support premium pricing. Logically, a product is made of materials, features, and functions. But the human mind experiences products through meaning. When a brand connects a product to heritage, purpose, artistry, innovation, or transformation, it changes the emotional frame around the price. A higher price can feel unreasonable when the product feels empty, but it can feel acceptable when the story makes the purchase feel special, lasting, or aligned with personal values. The mind evaluates value through both function and feeling. A handmade mug may cost more than a plain one, but if you know it was shaped by a local artist, the tiny imperfections become beautiful. The story creates emotional detail, and detail makes the object harder to replace. But this power has a hidden risk. A beautiful story can also make people overlook flaws, and that is where storytelling becomes loyalty. Imagine a community waiting in line for a new product. Some already own last year's version. Some know there are cheaper alternatives. But they are not there only for the object. They are there for the ritual, the belonging, the feeling of being part of a shared story. They talk to strangers, compare memories, and feel the excitement of a group that believes in the same symbol. This is how storytelling creates loyalty. Loyalty is not only repeated purchase. True loyalty is emotional continuity. It happens when people keep returning because the brand story has become part of their mental world. They know the values, the tone, the promise, and the feeling. The brand becomes familiar, and familiarity feels safe. You can see this when someone defends a favorite brand with surprising emotion. They may be defending memories attached to it. The laptop they used to start a dream, the shoes they wore during a personal change, or the app that made them feel organized. The beautiful side is genuine connection. But the deeper side is this. The same structure that creates loyal customers can also help leaders move people toward a vision. Imagine a team sitting in a meeting room, tired after months of uncertainty. Their leader could open a spreadsheet and talk about targets. Instead, she tells a short story about the first customer who trusted the company when it had almost nothing. She describes the problem, the courage of the team that solved it, and why the next project matters. The room changes. People are still tired, but now the work has a face. This is storytelling in leadership. A leader's job is not only to distribute tasks. It is to create meaning around effort. Complex goals are hard to follow when they feel abstract. But when a leader turns a vision into a narrative, people can understand where they are, what challenge they are facing, and why the next step matters. Stories help groups coordinate attention. A shared story tells a team, this is who we are, what we are building, and why the difficult part is worth it. That kind of meaning can inspire effort in a way formal authority cannot. Teachers use stories to make students care. Parents use stories to pass on values. Coaches use stories to turn training into identity. Strong leadership stories are not fantasies of perfection. They include obstacles, uncertainty, and growth. This is hard, but here is why it matters. And here is what we can become together. That is honest hope. But because stories touch emotion so deeply, the final layer is responsibility. Imagine Noah listening to two different leaders. The first tells a story that makes people feel curious, capable, and included. It gives context, invites thought, and helps people see their role with dignity. The second tells a story that makes people afraid, dependent, and suspicious of every question. Both are using narrative, but only one is using it to expand the mind. This is the ethical side of storytelling. Stories simplify reality. That is useful because reality is complex and people need meaning. But simplification can also become distortion. A story can highlight truth, or it can hide inconvenient details. It can inspire responsibility, or it can create blind loyalty. The difference is whether the story gives the audience more awareness or less. A healthy story invites people to see clearly, feel connected, and make better choices. An unhealthy story closes curiosity, replaces thinking with emotional pressure, and turns loyalty into obedience. One simple question can protect you. What is this story asking me to feel? And what is it asking me not to notice? A brand story may ask you to feel inspired, but not notice the price. A leadership story may ask you to feel loyal, but not notice missing transparency. A social media story may ask you to feel outraged, but not notice missing context. But there is also a positive way to use this knowledge. You can become more intentional with the stories you tell yourself. Instead of saying, "I am bad at this," you could say, "I am in the early chapter of learning this." Instead of saying, "I failed," you can say, "This is the part of the story where I discovered what needs to change." That shift gives reality a direction. And maybe that is the most surprising secret of storytelling. It does not only build brands or lead people. It helps human beings transform experience into meaning. A product becomes memorable when it carries a story. A leader becomes inspiring when they give people a future they can imagine. And a person becomes more resilient when they learn to narrate life with honesty, courage, and hope. So the next time a brand moves you, a leader inspires you, or a simple story stays in your mind longer than a list of facts, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what emotion did this story awaken? What memory did it touch? What identity did it invite me to step into? Because the mind does not only follow logic, it follows meaning. And the stories we believe can quietly shape what we buy, who we trust, where we belong, and what future we choose to build. If this video helped you see storytelling in a new way, leave a like, subscribe to Secrets of the Mind, and share your answer in the comments. Which story has influenced you the most without you realizing it? A brand story, a leader story, or a story you tell yourself?